This Thanksgiving marks the 50th anniversary of the Clint Longley Cowboys-Washington game. It was probably the first Thanksgiving games that I was locked in for because I kind of discovered the NFL, the Immaculate Reception game, late 72, followed it in 73. But by 74, I was all in and fascinated by the concept of football on Thanksgiving. Lions game early, Cowboys game late. And we have the Cowboys in that middle spot now. As of 2006, I think it was 2006, that's when the night game came along. So the middle spot, where over 40 million have watched in recent years, incredible numbers. And who knows, it'll probably be big again, because what else are you going to do at 4:30 Eastern on Thanksgiving afternoon? And there's the Clint Longley game. Down 16-3, the unknown comes in, leads the Cowboys back to the victory over George Allen and the Washington franchise. Great story, great game. I vaguely remember watching it happen in 1974 at my parents' house. But the Cowboys continue to hold that spot, Michael. And this year, not quite as compelling. Not really America's team anymore. The Giants stink. But it's like George Costanza said when Russell Dalrymple asked, "Why are you watching?" Because it's on TV. And it will be on TV. Right. And there ain't going to be anything else to watch.
What a smart decision, too. To be the franchise that says, oh, yeah, Thanksgiving? Like the franchises that initially said, oh, Monday night, I think it was Cleveland and the Jets, right? Monday Night Football, oh, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, Monday Night Football, that sounds good to me. Or Thursday, I'll play on Thanksgiving. The players don't always love it, but for your franchise profile, for franchise marketing, to know that that's a part of a holiday tradition, not just in Texas, but around the country, I think it's a smart decision. So I think good job by the Cowboys there. And the other thing is, even when they're not good, all right, you said it, it's the middle spot. So most people eat around, I don't know what time you guys eat, but 3 o'clock, 3:30, somewhere in there. You usually eat early on Thanksgiving. If the game is terrible, great nap spot. Right in there, first of many naps. So you watch the Cowboys and Giants, you will fall asleep. It's all right. This is the year you don't have to be in on the game details. In a couple of years where it's a more compelling game, all right, you take a nap before, because inevitably one of these games is going to be a dud. Maybe you take a nap before the night game or during the night game.
One of the developments in the household in recent years has been to nudge back the starting time of the major holiday meals. And I'm fully in support of it. The idea of eating this gigantic meal at 2 o'clock, and then when 6 o'clock rolls around, it's dinner time, baby. I'm going back to the trough. I'd rather just move it to 4, and just do it all at once. And then I don't feel compelled when I'm not hungry to go back and pick a little here and pick a little there. So I'm all in favor of the 4 o'clock meal time, especially this year. Watch all of Bears-Lions. We'll talk about that one in a second. Eat during the early stages of Cowboys-Giants. Fall asleep and wake up in time to watch Dolphins-Packers on NBC and Peacock, because that game has gradually gotten better now the Dolphins have figured out how to win some games.
Well, I'm a foodie, Mike, so I'm going to eat regardless. And so if it's a late dinner, I'll eat after dinner. Even if I'm not that hungry, I just like the taste. I like the taste of it. And look, you don't need an excuse. You don't need an excuse, or you don't have to apologize. So one day of the week, one day of the year, you don't have to apologize for just eating and eating and eating. So I'm going with that. But it's going to be a strange day for us because we have Massachusetts tradition, high school football, 10 a.m. 10 a.m.
Wow.
Thanksgiving. And
wow.
I don't know if you looked at the forecast up here. So game time, 10 a.m. is going to be in the 30s. So that's going to be tough. So I think we'll watch the game, couple hours, come back, kind of warm up for a couple hours, and then eat. So the tradition is kind of spun around a little bit because out in the cold, sitting there for 2 hours and watching high school football.
The key is make sure the tryptophan takes over by the time the Giants-Cowboys game rolls around, because you won't be missing anything. And you might not be missing Tommy DeVito at all. He's got a forearm injury. And this was weird because on Monday, the Giants put out a practice report. And this happens all the time when teams play on Thursday. They didn't practice on Monday, but they put out an injury report. And this guy would have practiced or wouldn't have practiced because of injury, even though we didn't practice anyway. But he wasn't on it at all. Clean, healthy, not mentioned. Tuesday, limited in practice with a forearm injury, and there's a chance he won't play. I feel like this is a not-so-artful attempt by the Giants to rectify whatever consternation might be lingering in the locker room, and plenty of guys were sounding off after the loss to the Buccaneers 30-7. You know, you bench the best quarterback on the team for money reasons, and the players don't care about that. They want the best players playing. Then you skip over number 2, who hadn't been dropped to number 3. He's still number 2. You jump over him because we want to give the people what they want, even if it's not what the players want. And I feel like this is kind of a not so artful way to put Drew Lock on the field on Thursday. I won't be surprised if it's Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush, not Tommy DeVito versus Rush.
They're playing a very dangerous game. I think you're right. I think they're trying to course correct as we go along. And we've seen this before from the Giants where a coach has had a vote of confidence or appears to have the support of ownership, and down the stretch, something happens. The coach will say something, or the fans will just kind of speak up against a particular issue, and then ownership changes their mind. So that's what happened that's what happened with Joe Judge. When he was the head coach of the Giants, it's amazing that Joe Judge was the head coach of the Giants. That's a different story. But when Joe Judge was the head coach of the Giants, he did have support until he gave his legendary "this ain't no clown show, bro" press conference. And I think that went on. That was unprompted, unscripted, and it was a disaster. And I think ownership moved away. I think for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, they have the support of ownership. But they got to navigate this thing down the stretch. You got Malik Neighbors popping off. You've got the PR director or an executive. I don't know what his Hanlon's proper title is. Talking about another network and their coverage of Daniel Jones. And, it's just, you're 2-9. That ownership support is so fragile. And one little thing or a couple of small things could change their mind. So they got to be careful here down the stretch. If those guys want to come back, Daboll and Shane, they should probably play it straight from here.
I agree completely. And we have to remember the context from the comments made last month by co-owner John Mara. He said he doesn't anticipate making any big changes during or after the season. He said it at the premiere of the Wellington Mara documentary. Might have had a glass of wine or a scotch. I fully endorse that. It's the whole idea is he's inspired by the fact that his dad was patient and I haven't been patient enough. It's easy to say that when you're caught up in that moment, but all moments like that pass, and then reality hits you in the face. Getting embarrassed at home after the bye week when your team had 2 weeks to get ready for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That wasn't good. Now, short week, trip to Dallas. Everyone's watching. You get your ass kicked down there. We've seen guys get fired the day after a Thanksgiving loss. Matty P got the pink slip from the Lions 2020, the day after the Thanksgiving loss. Because when you've already had your bye, the next best thing to having, some time to get the interim coach up to speed is right after a Thursday game. So if they are embarrassed by the Cowboys, that is going to be radar screen, middle of the beep, beep, watching for any word out of New York that John Mara has decided to clean house and lay the foundation for maybe something that we'll talk about later in the show. But I don't think that stuff that was said last month is even remotely close to being binding on John Mara. Like you said, they supported Joe Judge until they didn't. He can support Shane and Daboll until he doesn't.
Well, you outlined it nicely, all the things that happened. Let's just drop something else in there that we forgot that might influence the Giants. I mean, they're human, and we would think, and a lot of people might think, oh, ownership doesn't think that way. They're not paying attention. In the middle of all that, Saquon Barkley goes off for 300 yards from scrimmage, 300 yards.
Yes.
And it's great. I'll bet they all said, Mike, hey, it's a good idea. Off season, we don't want to do hard knocks. We don't want to do it in training camp. We don't want to do it in season. Okay, off season, that's a good idea. That was a bad idea for them. It's good for us because it allowed us to peek into the process. But every time you see Saquon Barkley do anything, before this 300-yard brilliant performance, anytime you see him do something good, you go back to, hey, why don't you go find something else? They essentially say, hey, go off. Find a deal if you can. Just let us know. And the guy, who was that sitting there saying, are we sure? Are we sure somebody's not going to give Saquon Barkley a market value contract? Why are we doing this? And so put that all together, and they might say, hey, these guys don't know what they're talking about. They left us with Daniel Jones. We released him. Saquon Barkley not only leaves, he goes off. He's having an MVP caliber season, and all we had to do was give him a contract, and we didn't do it.
Chris Rossetti, director of pro scouting, was the one in the first episode of the offseason Hard Knocks who was trying to gently make the case for keeping Saquon, or at a minimum tagging and trading him. And he said at one point, I could see a team like the Lions or the Eagles. And some of the shots, some of the cutaways were almost like Office quality awkward, where he's kind of squirming. And there was one spot where he's kind of like, I've said enough. If I say anything more, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm just going to sit here and bite my tongue and hey, I'm on record. Literally, no one can say that I wasn't against Saquon Barkley being allowed to become a free agent. Hell, he may be the next general manager of the team. I understand it affects families, but it's what you sign up for. It's one of the reasons you get paid so much money. You do, as Joe Douglas said a few weeks before he got fired, I serve at the pleasure of the owner. Yes, you do. And you know that the plug can be pulled at any time, arbitrarily and capriciously, fairly or unfairly, doesn't matter. And that was one of the biggest unforced errors of the season. And probably, as it relates to the Hard Knocks franchise, the worst moment for teams that supposedly have the ability, if they want, to micromanage the final product and leave things on the cutting room floor. I don't know if the Giants just didn't bother or they made really bad decisions about what should make it into the final broadcast version.
And Mike, I wonder what they said when it happened. I mean, when Saquon Barkley was on the market, this is not a second guess. We all did the same thing. When we figured out Saquon Barkley was going to be a free agent, Josh Jacobs is going to be a free agent, and Derrick Henry is going to be a free agent, we all said, oh, wow, trying to match up. Hey, Derrick Henry should go to Dallas. He should have, from a Dallas perspective. Or this guy can go here. Oh, Saquon Barkley would be a great fit with Philadelphia. So if we're saying that, observers of football, fans of football, we're saying it. I wonder what the Giants thought when there was a buzz for Saquon Barkley, when there was some excitement. Why didn't they have the excitement? Why didn't they say, oh, wait a minute, did they say we screwed up? Or did they have these meetings and say to themselves, oh, these other teams are idiots. They have no idea. We're so overpaying for Saquon. They shouldn't do that. He's going to let them down.
It really is amazing. And even if they didn't have any inside information, and you could argue that some general managers would have a network of sources that would have let him know, hey, he's probably going to Philadelphia. Because I feel like the Giants were caught flat-footed and surprised by the end result. Like they knew it might happen, but they didn't really take it seriously. They should have taken it seriously because you're right. That adds to this possible eruption of John Mara that could happen as soon as Friday if they get embarrassed by the Cowboys in the middle game of the triple header on Thanksgiving. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.